Good day, everybody. This is Marcel Pertut, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Inquirer Show. We're recording this on June 5th, 2020. Hope all of you are doing well and safe out there in the world. Chaotic week in the sports world and beyond, and we'll touch on all of those subjects and how they interweave with each other. But as always, want to follow everything that we're doing. Head to the mothership, to sportsinquirer.net, premier site for news and notes in the world of sports. You can also head to our social media pages on Twitter and Instagram. Just look up Sports Inquirer, all one word. You can find us there. On Facebook, you go to one of our two pages, either The Sports Inquirer or Sports Inquirer. And it's the Sports Inquirer, separate words, and Sports Inquirer, all one word. And then finally, subscribe to us on YouTube and SoundCloud under The Sports Inquirer. Just do a quick search. You'll see everything that we're doing, and that'll be a great way to keep up with all of the stuff going on our sites. On today's show, we'll break down the apology tour that's taking place in the NFL. We'll also delve into Major League Soccer and Atlanta United and their potential return to the field in the original free kick portion of our show. And then finally, we'll discuss the NBA and their attempts to get back on the field or back on the court in the Backdoor Cut. But as I said, first we'll start with the apology tour. Americans, at least here in the United States, that if you're listening to this internationally, it's probably the same wherever you're at, loves several things. One, they love the rise of somebody from the bottom, whether it's poverty or any other form of overcoming a bad thing, whether it's someone who's a minority, whether it's someone who came up poor, someone that is maybe not a different gender, a different race, things like that, has a physical or mental handicap, things along those lines. And they find their way to the top of their profession or whatever they're trying to achieve. We love that. We also love the comeback story. Someone that was at the top of their profession, had hardships, fell from that top perch, and then finds their way back. We also love a good apology. Someone says something wrong, does something wrong, but they go on camera, they write something up, and they apologize because we can all relate. We've all made mistakes if you're listening to this show, whether it's with your family, your friends, professionally, personally, all money-wise, all down the line, and all that. And that applies to the world of sports, and specifically the NFL, in three different instances that took place within the past week or so. We'll start with Drew Brees, Hall of Fame quarterback, currently with the New Orleans Saints, one of the best quarterbacks of all time, recognizable name in the world of not only football, but in professional sports. If you follow sports of any form, especially NFL, you know Drew Brees is. You know his story. He went to New Orleans right around the time they were trying to recover from Hurricane Katrina. He was part of the city's revival, winning a Super Bowl with them and helping the city rebuild. He is maybe the most, I don't want to say infamous, but most well-known and respected athlete in that area. And as I said, he's not only that, he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. He'll be in Canton 5 years after he retires, whenever that is. Well, during an interview, he discussed all the things going on in the world today with the protest. And he said that he would not condone or would not approve or accept someone kneeling down I guess, during the national anthem and disrespecting the flag. We've been down this road before. We all know about Colin Kaepernick and his kneeling during the national anthem and the fallout that's taking place from that. Now, Kaepernick's been out of the league for a few years, and it's a very polarizing issue. You have some that feel that he put himself in that position. His play has regressed. That's why he's not signed with the team. And then you have others who believe that it's been because he has been isolated, or I won't say blackballed or blacklisted because that has negative connotations, but some say that applies in this scenario, that he made a stand and a belief for his beliefs, and it's been twisted and turned, and now he's out of football when he's physically capable of being on an NFL roster. In the end, Brees made these statements. The typical backlash came from it. You have players, media members, even people who aren't involved, couldn't even pick out Drew Brees from a lineup. All of a sudden, wanting him to apologize, retire, shaming him and condemning him for his comments. In the end, he apologized 24 hours later. First, he wrote an apology, I guess, on his Instagram post, and then he recorded a video saying that he apologized for his statements and that he was, in essence, just backtracking on it. Why did he have to do that? If you're looking at the world in the United States and where we live, you cannot have it both ways. We've been seeing the protest and seeing everything that's going on as far as the death of Mr. Lloyd and many other to police brutality. And that was Colin Kaepernick's original intention when he was kneeling down during the national anthem. It wasn't because of the flag. It was because he was making a stand against police brutality. The thing is, with the national anthem, the American flag is a big part of that. So people like Donald Trump and others made that connection. That's wrong. But Kaepernick should have the right to make his statements and go about his path. Now, where my thoughts are is that in the NFL, your private organization, you should not have to. You don't tell me who to hire and fire for my position. If I'm an owner and I don't want him on the team for whatever reason, whether it's his play or he's going to be a distraction, or if I want to hire him because he's a good player, or maybe I want to make a statement, that's up to me as an owner. So my thoughts on Kaepernick has always been he should do whatever he wants, and I respect what he's doing, and I agree with him. But you cannot force ownership to hire him or fire him, and the league should not step in and do that as well. You have to let that happen on its own. So you have that side of things, but it also goes the other way for Drew Brees and others. There are some that feel that what he does is very disrespectful and to the country and to others, whether it's military or things along those lines. And I can see that perspective too. I don't agree with that perspective. I don't see that side of things. I disagree with what Drew Brees said, but it is his right as an American citizen to have that thought and have that belief and express it in that way. You have to have it both ways, freedom of speech. And if we're going to go down this road in sports, and we're really heading towards there now, it's gone from the angle of the shut up and dribble, the LeBron James statement that he's made popular. But in essence, we want our athletes to play the ball game, go home, and we don't want to hear or see them beyond that. And that's fine too. I understand that perspective. But if we're going to open up the world of sports and politics and merging them together, I don't like the intertwining of it, but it's unavoidable. If you look at history of sports, even going back to the ancient Roman and Greek days, it does tie into sports. You had the gladiators having issues with the Roman leaders and the Greek leaders and the Olympics and all that stuff. If you do your research, politics and sports have always been intertwined. That's unavoidable. But if in this current age, if we're going to have people being very open, expressing their statements, not liking Donald Trump or things about the racism and the oppression of minorities, and that the players are looking at from our perspective, and I say minority and even non-minorities, and you see players of all ages and races, black, white, and other things like that, players on an international level, non-Americans, making comments and statements and expressing their views on issues going on in the United States that do translate globally. If you're going to open ourselves up to that view of things, you have to understand that there's going to be an opposing side, an opposite side to it. And guys like Drew Brees, I shouldn't say guys like Drew Brees. Drew Brees and many others are going to have an opposite perspective. If it will keep it here in the United States, if you have athletes who don't like Donald Trump and his activities as president, you're going to have people that really enjoy his activities as president and like that. But you can't cancel each other out. And this cancel culture is very disappointing, because when you have someone like Drew Brees make this statement, and he shut down within 24 hours, and he didn't curse. He was not offensive. He didn't damn anyone or things like that. He didn't call anyone by a racist or sexist epithet or anything like that. He made his statement. He made his thoughts. But I'm sure not only did he have to deal with players, his sponsors, and all those lines. And the sponsor side of it is business. I understand that. But within 24 hours, he makes a statement, and he said he has to apologize. And I'm not saying that he's struggling and he's in the poorhouse. He's all right in that regard. But if we're gonna open up, as I said, this world of sports to a perspective of listening to others and being more understanding and all that stuff, you're gonna have to understand, comprehend the opposite side of things, and that translates over to Vic Fangio, the head coach of the Denver Broncos. Obviously, with all the things going on, and this really started in the NFL side of things. It just started a few weeks ago with the Rooney Rule and amendments to that. The Rooney Rule, for those of you unfamiliar with it, is that NFL teams are now required to interview minorities whenever they have a head coaching hire, and I believe general manager as well. So whenever you have an opening, you are required to interview, whether it's someone of different ethnicity, and gender's coming up as well. We're starting to see women assistant coaches on that level, and I think eventually I think it ties into them as well. But right now, I believe it's for minorities and non-white candidates, and it was one person that had to be in the coaching pool. Then the suggestion was made that it ties into draft compensation, whether it's a third round pick or compensatory picks, and that was rejected because that went beyond the Rooney Rule. It tied into players and actual on the field stuff. So in the end, I think now it's two minorities have to be interviewed for a position. So this has been going on for about a month and a half now in the NFL before the things we've been dealing with over the past week or so. So now we have Vic Fangio, the head coach of the Broncos, saying that he himself does not see racism in the NFL. His belief is that the league is kind of it's more if you can perform and play, or coach or be a good general manager, you'll reach your peak. You'll reach the highest level you possibly can. That's what he was saying. Obviously, he literally said there's no racism in the NFL. I'm not misquoting him there. That led to the same thing with Drew Brees, and I'm sure he got a lot of calls from ownership, from other players, and it was the lead on every ESPN and Fox Sports, FS1 show, because I was checking the top of every show just to see what the temperature was, and it led every show. Now Drew Brees usurped him because he's more famous than Vic Fangio, but that was the big thing that was going on. Similar deal. Look, if he doesn't see racism, it is what it is. He's an older white man. He's in his 60s. He's a qualified head coach. There's no questioning that. He's earned his position, but he's a man from different sectors, kind of similar to Drew Brees. And I don't want to put his race in there because that lacks the acknowledgement that people of other races cannot see what is going on, because we're multi-layered. We're all multi-layered, and I don't believe that all because you are a certain race and you're raised in a certain part of the country and you have a certain economic background that you cannot have the perspective of others and understand others. Now, there's a limit to that. I don't want you to speak for me and my experiences, but I have the ability and the mental capacity and aptitude to see something from another perspective than my own. And we've seen a lot of that as well. I think you've seen some people kind of talk for black people in this issue, sports-wise and non-sports-wise, and speak for me. And that's a little much. But look, Fangio has his opinions, and should he be shot down for them? No, not at all. And he apologized as well. And Brees and I think the apologies come a lot as well. If you do look at it from a locker room, The majority of the players are black. So you make these statements that be construed as anti-black. You're going to walk to a locker room. You're going to have to answer questions of your own players, your own coaching staff, and things along those lines. So the apology tour is kind of people covering up for that. But you have to let him speak and express his opinion. Do I agree with Vic Fangio? No, I do not. I think there's racism in everything. The levels are all different. I think it's a layered, complicated issue, and I think there's a lot to it, a lot more of it, or a lot to it. Sometimes it's very strong and evident. Sometimes it's subtle. But to say that there's no racism that's not accurate. But that's his opinion. Let him be. Let him live. And then finally, Jake Fromm, the rookie quarterback for the Buffalo Bills. He was just drafted this past NFL draft. And this was shady. This was probably the shadiest one of them all, as far as the approach to it. Fangio and Drew Brees made their statements openly and to the public, and I would assume in a clear physical and mental state. Jake Fromm, texting with a lady friend of his, had a statement a few months ago that guns are good, just make them very expensive so only elite white people can get them. And then, in the text. First of all, who leaked the text? There's a lot going on there. Two, I'm surprised this didn't come out earlier. We have all of these NFL teams. They have evaluators. They hire former FBI people or current FBI people, private investigators. They do all of this stuff. Now they claim they don't do it, but if you're a $1 billion business and you are researching your commodities that are part of your $1 billion business, and every NFL team is worth $1 billion at least, some even more than $1 billion. You're gonna do as much as you can to research your players that you're bringing into the fold, so they know what's going on. They know your relationship status. They know your family. They know what your finances. They know where you are, and a lot of levels of your life. So I'm surprised it took this long for this to leak out. And it was also a private message between him and his lady friend. We've all made statements in privacy that are not for the public. Some of us have made racist statements, sexist statements that or things along the lines that would get us fired from a job, would alter our standing in the community, and things like that. So he is sending a private message, I said, to his friend about the guns being good, make them for elite white people, and things like that. Does he really believe that? I mean, obviously he sent the message, and he might have been joking, and he put the haha at the end, which it could have been sarcasm, it could have been the straight truth. We don't know that. But the fact that, once again, within 24 hours, and his was I think I saw the story, and he's a former University of Georgia quarterback, so he's very well known here in the Atlanta area. So maybe because I'm here in this part, I know his name, I know his face, and things like that. But he was the number one trending topic on Twitter. I think it happened maybe 8 or 9 a.m. yesterday. It was the leading topic. And then by 12 o'clock or 1 p.m., he had the apology out. So it happened all within a few hours. If we're going to go down this road of checking people's messages and text, and once again, I don't feel sorry for Fromm. I'm a little more sympathetic than Brees and Fangio, because those guys were in the public. They said some, I'll say inappropriate things that were counter to what I agree with. I don't mind them saying them, but I can understand that you're going to be criticized for what you say in that regard. But to have a private message leaked like that and to be publicly shamed in that way, that's a little rough for me. Now with him, he's a young player. Brees, his pedigree and his status is very good. And I'll say this as well. People are talking about Drew Brees. How is he going to go back in the locker room? How is he going to be able to look players in the eye and all of that stuff. Throw a few touchdowns, he'll be okay. Look, this is business. There are guys in the locker room that, and just me, I never played beyond high school, so I'm not talking as a former player as at the highest level. But I've been in locker rooms and I talk to players, and it is what it is. You're not going to agree with everybody and everything. Now, they put up a public front a lot of times, these players now in 2020, that, hey, we all get along and this is we're all unified and whatever. That's not true. In your own workplace, wherever you are at, I'm sure you've had a coworker that disagreed with your political perspectives or issues that that relate to the community and to the real world. But when you're in that office, you do your job, you're professional, and you work it out. Similar deal to the NFL, even more. There are guys who probably never speak to each other and disagree with each other on every topic. Yet when you see them on Sundays or whatever day of the week they're playing any sport, they're high-fiving each other. Good job. There's a great teammate. All those things. And I know it's a new generation that comes in every few years, and we have a group of 20 and 30-year-olds, including myself, I'm in my 30s, that are more socially aware and more expressive about opinions, especially on social media. But Brees will be okay. As I said, he's going to come into the locker room, he's going to throw some passes. During training camp, he'll have his opening training camp. He'll answer questions about this, and you'll move on. And same thing with Vic Fangio. You really think a player that disagreed with them about the no racism in the NFL is going to go up to the front office of the Broncos and say, I want to be released. I don't want to play for this head coach when there are only a handful of positions in the NFL. You're going to work it out. A player, as long as the coach puts him in a good position to win the game and to succeed on a professional level individually, the player will be okay. Now, deep down inside, they may not like the guy or stand the guy, but they'll play ball. Fromm is a little bit of a different position because he is a rookie. He's a young guy. He hasn't thrown a pass in the NFL. He comes in as a late-round draft pick that is bordering to make the roster even before preseason starts. So he's in a spot where it's a tough road for him to have to overcome in that regard. But he'll have the opportunity. He'll be in camp. They're not going to cut him, during these times. So they're going to see him play. If he goes into training camp in the preseason and plays really well, guys will put up with it because they want to have success. Now, he's in a tough position because he's a backup to an established quarterback in Josh Allen in Buffalo. So he's not going to have as many opportunities to play. And while I said Brees, Hall of Fame quarterback, he's their best option there. And if Fangio, he's the head coach, they're going to stay on their respective rosters and head coach of their teams. Fromm is going to have probably an uphill battle to work with. He had an uphill battle just going into the NFL. But if he proves himself and takes advantage of some opportunities, he'll be all right. So the apology tours, as I mentioned earlier, we love them in the United States. We love redemption stories and things like that. But if you're going to have the extremes, and it's become the extreme liberal side of things, and that's where you're hearing a lot of perspectives against Brees and Fangio, that perspective, and that kind of tends to lean towards the Colin Kaepernick side of things. You also have to understand the conservative side or liberal or the right wing side of things as well, and that tends to be more of a nationalistic, pro-America. How dare someone disrespect the flag? How dare someone sees racism in the world when we have things like affirmative action and the Rooney Rule and all of that stuff? You're going to have both sides clashing against each other, but there's a civil way to do it. You can't just stand on your side of things or on your corner and not be willing to move towards the middle. And that's where it seems like the sports world has been going over the past week, and these NFL apologies tend to represent that. Let's move on to the Major League Soccer and the original free kick portion of our show. They are back in training. We know over the past few weeks we've been seeing them do the individual training that's taken place under highly scrutinized, and a very contained element. It ties to the coronavirus. Actually, and one more thing, going back to the apologies. We have no sports going on right now. Everything is. We have two things going on. Well, the coronavirus, which affects our daily lives and everything going on there. The second thing is, because of that coronavirus, we have no sports being played right now. We would have the NBA playoffs and NBA and NHL playoffs going on. We'd be in the middle of the MLS season. Baseball and Major League Baseball will be about a month into the year. This will be a very busy and fun time in the world of sports. But we have nothing to talk about. Yes, NASCAR has returned, and PGA Tour is about to tee off, I think, this weekend coming up. So we're starting to see some sports come back. But as far as the major sports take place, and Major League Soccer is a major sport too, and they have not come back and played yet, that heightens everything. And also, they could heightens a lot of stuff going on with George Floyd and the protest. Now, I think the protest still would have happened under normal circumstances, but the virus has really limited everything and put us in a heightened state. So I think those things have really contributed to everything that's going on. And Major League Soccer's been dealing with it as well. So they lifted the team training moratorium yesterday on June 4th, and on March 12th, teams can now go to individual club plans to return to first team training. So the club medical staff and the disease experts are going to review everything. But starting on March 12th, teams can train full time or have full team training. And all the players are going to take the test and are going to go through all of the mandatory medical preparations for it. So the individual teams must remain in compliance with local health and government policies and adhere to detailed health and safety protocols that were created in consultation with medical and infectious disease experts. What that means is that they have to comply with the state. And Georgia's actually, Atlanta United's been, just because the state of Georgia and what we have going on here, have had a little bit of a leg up as far as the individual training and things like that, as opposed to the teams based out of New York and teams based out of California, where it's been, and things are opening up a little bit more now, but they've been limited in their social interaction just because of the stay-at-home orders that have taken place. In Canada as well, the Canadian teams have been dealing with that as well. But as I said, on March 12th, at least from Major League Soccer side of things, teams can go back to being a full team training under the new guidelines. And Darren Eales, the president of Atlanta United, spoke with the media yesterday on June 4th about the team's return to regular training and what the process will be like. So here was Darren Eales.
Yeah, Doug, I mean, what I like about it is that we get back to playing. And I think, the important thing here is we're in unprecedented circumstances. We're not the only league that's trying to navigate the way through uncharted territory. And, wherever we land, it'll never be perfect. And I think that's something that is the reality of this situation. It isn't going to be perfect, whether that's amount of time training before the games, the circumstances. It is going to be something that we've not done before, but it's something that we've got to try and get back to playing games. So I think that's important. I also think it's important. Look, I totally understand from the players' perspective that they had a number of questions and this is going to be tough for them, totally empathize with them. And we're all in this together. I'm going to be going there. Carlos is going to be going there. Our medical staff are going to be going there. So this isn't just the players. This is the whole staff of the teams that will be going down there. So, safety is top concern, obviously. There's still work to be done because we're yet to have that announcement. So we don't know what it's going to look like. But I do like the fact that we're going to be playing games, and by all accounts, they're going to be meaningful games. And I think, the fact that there'll be some regular season games as part of that tournament, I think is really important because it gives that credibility. This is something that's going to affect the standings, and the players are going to be up for it, the clubs are going to be up for it. So I do think it's going to be real meaningful matches. So I'm excited about that.
And that was President Darren Eales for Atlanta United discussing the team and what's going on there. Jeff Larentowicz, the one of the team leaders for Atlanta United, not only on the field but off the field, dealing with the MLSPA and the negotiations, discussed the process and what took place and how the team was able to go from the negotiation table and come to the resolution of coming back onto the field. So here's Jeff Larentowicz discussing that topic.
They're incredibly difficult. I think that I've been through several collective bargaining sessions with the players, but this one had an incredible unknown, the variable of the virus, and collective bargaining is already difficult, but doing it around something that is relatively unknown, how it's going to affect the future, is difficult to bargain around. So I would say that this was easily one of the most difficult negotiations I've been a part of. What's been passed, I can't say that I fully feel like Orlando as a tournament is. I never really felt like my answers or my questions were fully answered. Being asked to take a leap of faith by the commissioner in a situation involving a pandemic seems forces me to question some things. But I understand the need to get back to play for a lot of players. And I also understand that there will be a lot of testing, but there still seems to be holes in the plan. And I hope they are going to use the next several weeks to close those holes. They're incredibly difficult. I think that, I've been through several collective bargaining sessions with the players, but this one had an incredible unknown, the variable of the virus, and collective bargaining is already difficult, but doing it around something that is relatively unknown, how it's going to affect the future, is difficult to bargain around. So I would say that this was easily one of the most difficult negotiations I've been a part of. What's been passed, I can't say that I fully feel like Orlando as a tournament is. I never really felt like my answers or my questions were fully answered. Being asked to take a leap of faith by the commissioner in a situation involving a pandemic seems forces me to question some things. But I understand the need to get back to play for a lot of players. And I also understand that there will be a lot of testing, but there still seems to be holes in the plan. And I hope they are going to use the next several weeks to close those holes.
And now Jeff Larentowicz discussing the negotiations getting back onto the field. He also discussed the potential lockout or the threat of a lockout that the MLS, the organization, put on the players if the agreement wasn't reached. He has some strong opinions about the lockout threat that Major League Soccer put towards the Major League Soccer Players Association. So here's Larentowicz discussing that threat. And now is Jeff Larentowicz discussing the threat and the contentious nature of the negotiations. But the guys are back on the field, and there's still a lot to be discussed. We don't know when the games will start. We know they're going to be in Orlando in a tournament style format to start things off. Now, are they going to have the tournament and that counts towards and that's the entire season right there? Are they going to have the tournament for a few weeks and then go back to their home cities and be able to host MLS contest? Larentowicz, he discussed further the not knowing what the protocols will be as far as the testing, lodging, food, how they're going to be fed, travel, the lodging where they're going to stay. All that stuff is still being negotiated. So it's a fly-by-night situation. So we'll see what goes on there. I think that those details will be worked out by the time they head to Orlando, which could be as early as next week. By the next time we do a show, we'll have further plans on that, or we'll know the extensive plans on that. But we'll see what happens with the Atlanta United. The USL Championship made their announcement as well that they are set they have a provisional start date of July 11th. So we at least know a time when they're going to start their season. As far as information on the format, scheduling, broadcasting, and other important details are going to be made available in the upcoming weeks. So we don't know when Atlanta United 2 will be back on the field, or if they're going to do a similar deal that Major League Soccer is doing as far as the tournament. And this underlines the fact that even though Atlanta United and Atlanta United 2 play for the same, are part of the same organization, they play for different leagues. So everything that MLS is doing is different than the USL. Even though the USL does tend to take the lead of Major League Soccer, and that's understandable, seeing how Major League Soccer is the top professional league in North America, or at least the United States. I got Liga MX in Mexico, respected. I don't want to say North America. But as far as the United States goes, it is the top professional league in that regard. So we'll see what happens there with Major League Soccer and what they're trying to do there. And then finally, NBA has made their plans known as far as getting back to the field as well. As I recorded this on July 5th, yesterday on July 4th, we received the announcement that NBA is making significant headway in returning to play. Commissioner Adam Silver and the owners approved a plan to finish out the remainder of the 2019 and 2020 season at Disney World in Orlando, where a champion will be crowned. Now, it vote required 3/4 of approval for it to pass, and the vote was 29-1. The Portland Trailblazers were the lone team not to approve of the deal. So a call is taking place later on today with the NBPA, the National Basketball Players Association, to approve of the deal, and that they're going to vote on it. What the league is targeting is a start date of July 31st, where 22 of the 30 NBA teams are expected to participate in Orlando. The 16 current playoff teams will be invited, as well as the New Orleans Pelicans, Portland Trailblazers, Sacramento Kings, San Antonio Spurs, Phoenix Suns, and Washington Wizards. And the teams are going to play an abridged version of the regular season that will consist of 8 games, and that also includes a play-in tournament for the 8th seed in both conferences. Now, a tournament will only happen if the 9th seed finishes within 4 games of the 8th seed. So if that happens, the 9th seed and the 8th seed will play for a chance for that final playoff spot. So the teams in the play, everyone that's down there is going to play a few final games, not only to get them bodies right and get them prepared for the playoffs, but also playoff positioning. Once that finishes up, if there's still a contention for the final seed, the 9 and 8 seed from the East and West will, in the Eastern Conference and West Conference separately, they're going to play each other to get that final seed, and then we'll have the playoffs and go from there. We don't have a format for the postseason. We don't know if it's going to be a single elimination, best of 3 round, best of 5. We don't know that stuff yet, so they are trying to figure that out. We also know that the 2020 NBA Draft lottery is going to be moved to August 25th, and the NBA Draft is going to take place on October 15th, which would come 3 days after potential Game 7 of the NBA Finals, because the teams that are not in the playoffs obviously going to be thrown into the pool for the lottery. And there's, I think, some staggered odds towards teams in the bottom as far as the lottery goes. That's not been confirmed yet as far as what the lottery is going to be. So I don't know the details on that. So the NBA has set some dates, at least to try to get back onto the court. And we don't know when the 2020-2021 season will start, but the assumption is that it'll be in mid to late December. We don't know if that's going to be December 15th or if it's going to be around or the later or Christmas Day has been a popular option for the start of the new season, or if they're going to wait till the calendar turns to 2021 to start the new year. We don't know that part yet because they still have to finish out this current season, which is the 2019-2020 season. We have at least some idea of what the NBA is going to do. My thoughts, it's a fair compromise. You have all the teams that are playoff eligible in one location. That's smart. I never thought that we would. I assumed or I believe that we weren't going to see all 30 teams going down to Orlando to play out the string, especially teams that are in the lower half of the standings, because the more bodies you have there, the more you leave yourself susceptible for infection. And you also, Damian Lillard, and it's interesting that the Blazers voted against this rule, yet they're one of the teams that are going to be heading down to Orlando. Damian Lillard, obviously the all-star player for Portland, discussed, I don't want to play if there's no chance for me to make the playoffs, and he received some criticism on both sides for that. So that means that what he was saying kind of represented the beliefs, I think, of a lot of other people involved. If you're a team like Atlanta or a team that was really down at the bottom, like the Knicks, that have no chance of being in the playoffs, or even like teams like that, it's probably best that you don't make the trip down to Orlando to participate. Because if you're gonna have apathetic players and apathetic coaches about it, you hurt the integrity of the game, which as much as you can in this kind of weird scenario. But that leaves yourself open to injuries. And what if a Hawk player gets infected when there was no chance for the team to make playoffs, and then that's a whole PR issue as well. So I think that's smart in that regard. As I said, these are odd times. Are we going to recognize the NBA? Of course, is there an asterisk next to championship? A lot of people are going to do that. It's just a weird deal. If the Lakers, who are coming as the favorite, best record in the West, they win the championship, or Milwaukee, the best record in the NBA, if they win it, does that validate it? Or if a team that's at the bottom or lower half of the playoffs, say, Houston's pretty good, but a team in the bottom half of the stands, like that makes a run, or what if the Sacramento Kings, they play themselves into playoffs, they get really, really hot and win the championship, or the Phoenix Suns? Does that diminish their championship because of this abbreviated kind of deal? We don't know that. You just have to accept it for what it is. At least they're making steps in a positive direction, as opposed to Major League Baseball, which can't even agree on how many games to play, let alone location. So we'll see what happens there. And then finally, just to wrap things up, and it does tie into the virus, we've started to see some positive tests taking that are coming out of the colleges. We discussed a few weeks ago about the colleges are starting to have players come in for voluntary training and things along those lines. Several University of Alabama players tested positive for the coronavirus. I think Oklahoma State player for football, he said he's positive for it as well. And with the Alabama players, they came in asymptomatic, and they're testing everyone as they walk into the door, and they're carrying the virus, so they're going through the isolation process and all those protocols. We're going to see the same thing with all these leagues. I went through all those details about Major League Soccer in the NBA, going through all those steps, they're gonna have a positive player. And it might be a star player. And I don't want to name a star player to put some negative karma on them, but we're gonna have a star player that's a major contributor to his team. He's gonna get the virus and he's gonna sit out the playoffs or sit out a tournament for MLS. Be prepared for that reality. It's going to happen. And another reality to look forward to, possibly, is guys not participating in these events. MLS and Darren Eales, the president of the team, was very leery. And I'll play the audio quote next time on the show. What if a player does not want to go down to Orlando for the tournament? Does that affect his status on the roster? You can't cut a player or release a player for not wanting to participate in the tournament, but I think it's going to be looked at in a very bad way. And we've already seen some other players around the league with pregnant wives and girlfriends and health issues as far as personally being susceptible to contracting coronavirus have already stated that they are very leery to returning to the field to play. That's going to happen quite a bit with everything that's going on. So be prepared for that, and we'll just see what happens from there. Thanks for listening to today's show, and as always, want to follow everything that we're doing, head to the sportsinquirer.net, premier fight news notes in the world of sports. And once you do that, you see all our social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and subscribe to us on YouTube and SoundCloud. Until next time, good fight, good night, and be safe.